Joining us right now to talk more about it, Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Colonel, good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
Your thoughts on the new travel security enhancements this morning?
Well, two things. As John Kelly said, the terrorists are constantly adapting. We do know that these new restrictions are based on real intelligence plus real things that have been observed. The Russians lost an aircraft coming out of the Sinai based on what we believe to be an ISIS bomb planted while on the ground. So the enhancement of reviewing what's going on when the aircraft are on the ground, reviewing the passengers, using dogs to sniff. Look, whenever you travel up and down the Northeast Corridor here on Amtrak has deployed dogs. I think it's a great way of trying to detect explosives. So I think what they're doing here, Maria, is actually based on real threats, real issues. The question now becomes implementation. Some airlines may be quicker than others, some locations quicker than others. Clearly the terrorists are going to be looking for vulnerabilities, but I think clearly they're trying to stay ahead of them.
Yeah, that's interesting, Governor. You have some real issues here.
Colonel, you know, one of the things that's very frustrating, though, is that there's been seemingly less coordination with the airlines on how to make this work. I mean, I don't mind a dog sniffing my laptop. I do mind being told that I can't carry a laptop anywhere. And it seems like that we are making travel almost insufferable for the consumer. And I get the safety issue. I'm all for safety. I truly am. But many of the people making these rules don't fly commercial aircraft, and I don't know if they understand the inconvenience and the challenges they're putting not only to the consumer, but to the airlines themselves.
Well, I'd like to believe they're going to limit, Governor, the locations which they do the enhancements. I mean, you know, some places I believe the threat is completely different, so I think we'll have to see how they implement it. With that said, though, the miniaturization of explosives is a grave concern. And my belief is, look, you don't have to get an explosive onto the aircraft. You can get it into the queue area, into the screening area, and take out a lot of people as well. So there's some real issues here of how they look at implementing this and how they can ensure that we're being safe. And I'm with you, and I think the practicality of this is going to have to be something they observe as they implement, because slowing down the traveling public never sits well. And again, I believe TSA is nothing but security theater. They have yet to catch one terrorist that I'm aware of, and I'm not convinced that they're doing the right things right now.
Colonel, it's Pete Hegseth here. Just earlier this month, good morning, the Trump administration approved new questionnaire questions for the U.S. visa applications, social media accounts, and other handles to get ahead of those who would wish to do us harm. Tonight, the travel ban goes into effect for 6 Muslim-majority countries, as well as all refugees seeking to come to the United States. How significant is this, and how much do you think it'll contribute to our future safety?
Well, two things. I think on the issue of screening, enhanced screening, or limiting, I think that's a great idea. We do recognize that ISIS is trying to get people into both the refugee stream and then traveling through certain, I guess, portholes, gateways. And so there's nothing wrong with this. I think the idea of looking at enhanced screening for individuals coming through these known hotbeds of terrorists is not a bad thing. And again, it's not like we're keeping everybody out. The allowed people, the people who are allowed to come through, visa holders, green card holders, all these things I think are common sense. So I cannot believe that any court ever held this back, and it's shameful. It took the Supreme Court 9-0 to vote this back into effect.
Just one thing about this, the new Homeland Security air security measures, it precludes a wider ban on electronic devices and actually would lift the current ban at these 10 airports. If these airports comply with what Homeland Security wants, then you will be able to take your electronic devices onto aircraft at these 10 airports.
What if they don't comply?
Well, then that's their problem. And these are overseas airports.
And Colonel, this is almost like the travel ban. If these 6 countries get a hold of the process that is required to get a visa, you could rescind the ban from these countries. But right now, we don't know who's coming into our country from a lot of these places.
Is that right, Colonel?
Yeah, oh, yes, that's right. Yes, I mean, look, the issue is all these locations have to upgrade their security posture to a certain level. And if they don't, then there will be consequences or continued restrictions regarding those electronic systems. Again, you can open up a laptop, examine it, go through a number of things to check it. That takes time. But you need to have people who are qualified to do that screening available to do that. That's one of the issues.
Colonel, let me turn to what's going on with Jim Comey, a former FBI director. Basically, we're hearing a lot from the Senate Intelligence Committee and they are asking for more information.
Right.
The Senate Intelligence Committee reportedly will receive the memos that Comey made of his conversations with President Trump. Lawmakers want answers. Utah Congressman Jason Chaffetz says that the memos on the president may not be enough. Listen to this. Got to get your reaction.
Sure.
You want to know what he was thinking at the time, and you should get all the notes. I don't think they should get just those. I think it should go back to Loretta Lynch and the interaction with President Obama. He was known to have a reputation of making these types of copious notes. Well, let the different committees in a classified setting be able to review those.
Should Comey hand over all these memos? And what about the request that Senators Chuck Grassley and Lindsey Graham are making? They want answers from the FBI on the Russia election probe. They say they're asking the Bureau to hand over all applications for surveillance warrants that are part of the investigation. We know that this is real important to Lindsey Graham because Lindsey Graham says he was surveilled, he was spied on. So they want the list of all of the people that the government, the Obama administration said, let's spy on these people. They might have something to do with the Russia probe, which we know was a complete narrative in terms of collusion.
Right. Well, look, Congress has been spied on under the Patriot Act since the beginning. I've warned members of Congress this is something they should be looking out for, so I think Lindsey Graham should be concerned. Let's go back to the McCabe issue. First off, Andrew McCabe should not be the acting director of the FBI since he personally is under 3 different investigations. So let's just, get real on that. Regarding the memos, I agree. Look, anything that James Comey did as work product during the time he was director of the FBI should be available to Congress, period. And most of those should not be classified. I respect Jason Chaffetz a great deal, but reading them in a classified setting, no. These are unclassified memos. They should be immediately released to the public for us to see what James Comey said. And absolutely, anything that he did during the time he was talking to Loretta Lynch, to the time he met with the president, that should all be fair game.
Yeah, it's incredible to me, Governor, that all of these people were spied on, and then here's Jim Comey with his own notes that he leaks to the professor who gives it to the New York Times.
Well, there were 2 things, and I think the Colonel pointed that out brilliantly. Number one, this is a work product. That information did not belong to Jim Comey. It belonged to the government for whom he worked and who gave him a paycheck. He did 2 things that were fundamentally wrong, if not even illegal. Number one, he took a work product away with him when he left his government job. Number 2, he then leaked that government document to somebody without authorization to receive it, i.e. the New York Times. These are 2 things that if the Senate wants to go investigate something and sniff that out,
well,
because that's pretty serious.
How about a third? He took orders from his boss to call a criminal investigation a matter.
Right. And
he called it a matter after she told him to call it, Loretta Lynch.
There's an
investigation
worth having. Absolutely, it's worth having.
All right, Colonel, real quick, final thoughts from you.
Sure. Well, look, I think we had to get to the bottom of who was under the warrants, too. This is another issue where you need to immediately go back and do a severe and direct search of who all was being surveilled. Right. And I think we're due the information. It should come soon.
Colonel, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer.